Greenlight Network presents Football Time.
Hey, and welcome to the Football Time Show. We're here for NFL Week 5, a one-show week for us this week. We'll be back to our two-show-a-week format next week, but we're going to integrate our Tuesday show with our Friday show. We'll talk about a little bit of the games as we get in there, as we break down and get into our mutuals this week. But entertaining Week 5, a handful of really, really good games on the slate here. So it should be fun to get into that. Are you ready to get into some football this week, Achilles?
Yeah, I'm excited. Before we decided to mesh our shows together, I was really somber based off last week's results. But now I'm really cheery, so let's do this.
All right. So you mentioned it. If we had done Tuesday's show, it would have been sad, Achilles. But we're doing Friday's show, so it probably sort of happy, Achilles. He probably can't love how they're playing right now. But the Rams ended up beating the Seahawks on Thursday Night Football. Really tough matchup. I don't think if you looked at the sort of preseason outlook, that would have been a game the Rams would have marked to be favored in going into on a short week into Seattle. But, they started out real slow, found their groove there a little bit in the second half. Geno Smith came in, played okay, and then did Geno Smith things and threw a pick there at the end to give the Rams the win. We'll combine it. The Rams, the last two games, I thought they really played poor versus the Cardinals. You thought it was coming. I did not see it coming. I thought they'd sort of just roll through this whole regular season and be a 14-2. Well, I guess it can't be 14-3 team. I guess 14-3. I guess 15-2 would be ridiculous to say. So
yeah, I think so.
I can't really fathom that, but 13-4 sounds too weak. I don't know. My brain is molded into 16-game seasons, so 4 losses seems bad. But I thought it'd be a 13-4, 14-3 type season for them. And just a disappointing loss at home to that Arizona team. They didn't play well. Defense looked, I don't quite know how to qualify it, but looked soft, I'd say. They just give up yardage both on the ground. They got destroyed on the ground versus the Arizona Cardinals, and they do their thing where they give up a little bit of 8-yard pass, 8-yard pass, 8-yard pass, and let people work their way down the field. So that's disappointing. It didn't look a whole lot better this week defensively. They were running the ball pretty nicely. They did get a good fourth down stop, I thought, on the Seahawks in the first half. And then they found their offense there. But what do you make of the Rams so far this season?
So far, I have to say, even though I'm impressed with the way the season started off, it's starting to at least become a little clearer as to what I at least kind of expected, which is a bit of a regression from where they were at the beginning of the season. They started off so hot. Matthew Stafford looked like he was, at least an MVP candidate the way he was playing. But things have started to slow down for the entire team, especially on offense. Defensively, last year they were the best defense in the NFL, and I think a lot of people expected, somewhat of the same. But they had so many departures during defense during the offseason that I didn't think they were going to be as good as they were last year. Even though they didn't lose any of the key players, like the Donalds and the Ramseys, they lost a lot of role-playing guys that really kept that unit, whole, so to speak, like the glue, in that defense. But they're starting to kind of, get their mojo going, but they're still not going to be as good as they were last season. And it's concerning. And we talked about it during the first couple of weeks. They definitely showed that they were one of those defenses that bends, doesn't always break. The issue, kind of going back to the Cardinals offense, how we said that they're really good offense, but they depend too much on the big playmaking, players and their big plays on offense. It doesn't always work that way. And same thing for the defense. It's not always going to work that way either for the defense. So you can bend as much as you want. Eventually you're going to break. And when you do, it's going to cost you like it did the Rams last week.
Yeah, I was watching last Sunday's matchup. I was watching, this week's matchup, and it sort of struck me. Raheem Morris took over as the defensive coordinator. He's a guy who got to start really sort of out of Tampa Bay. He Tony Dungy hired him, but when Tony Dungy left, John Gruden kept him on. But he has a lot of that Tampa 2 style, cover 2 soft zone defense, not to give up explosive plays. And, really, this Rams team sort of reminded me a little bit of those Colts teams in the, mid 2000s, not the early ones that Peyton Manning was on where they had no defense and was just all offense. It was more that one with Freeney and Mathis were there. Bob Sanders was in the backfield. And they were similar in that, they could dominate defensively at times, but it helped if the Colts got up and got a big lead, and then you could play that soft style of zone. And, it seems similar to that. I don't think that offense is quite as good as the Colts offense, back in those days, but those Colts offenses were, historically good. But the thing that concerns me with that is when you get in the playoffs, like you saw with those Colts teams, it becomes a little bit more matchup based when you get in those playoff matchups. So if you get one of those heavy pass rush teams, like you saw it in the Cardinals, who can really sort of put pressure on the quarterback, your offense doesn't quite as you don't get up on that lead. So your defense sort of bend but don't break is giving up yards. You don't have the ball. I think that's probably what concerns me the most, because I thought this team would blitz through the regular season and then, probably win at least 2 playoff games if they got the bye, 1 playoff games, and be there for that, NFC finals matchup. And I don't know if it's going to be quite as easy as I thought right now this year from what I'm seeing. And now I'm a little scared if they hit one of those teams that has, a real big pass rush, can sort of disrupt that offense. Maybe this defense can't do the sort of shutdown thing that they sort of did last year. I mean, they won that playoff game last year just totally based on their defense shutting down that Seattle Seahawks team. So I think that's the only thing that concerns me a little bit here.
Yeah, the Rams have been pretty flat over the last couple of weeks, especially on offense. You look at Matthew Stafford, and some of the questions that I had coming into the season are starting to, perk their ears again. I heard all the good things. I know that he had all the skills and he had all the throws. He could do just about everything. He just never had a good team around him. I heard all those. My concern was how is he going to play once he gets, in a Rams uniform and once he's considered to be on a elite team, as the Rams were considered to be. And I have to say, I'm still concerned. I like Matthew Stafford. I think he's very talented, but I'm concerned. There's a few things I've seen that, give me at least a little bit of pause, especially on deep shots. I don't know if you noticed it, but over the last couple of weeks, it seems like he's struggling to get the ball deep.
Yeah,
it seems like
he's been real erratic on it. Now he hit the big win with Jackson last night, but
even that was underthrown.
Oh, it was.
Now he was hit. Okay, he was hit. So there's an excuse there. But that wasn't the only throw. The only deep throw he attempted, and it seems like the deeper he goes, either he loses arm strength or he loses accuracy, which is probably a little bit concerning going forward. Defensively, I think that they'll be okay. They've got enough playmakers to make big plays when you need them to, but it's hard to really rely on that.
Yeah, I think that other side of the corner spot, certainly, a dime corner in there. They've been picking on the rookie. He's been benched, twice in the last 2 weeks. And the problem is you bench that guy, you go deeper into somebody in your depth chart, it's not going to improve. You don't magically have someone better who you ranked behind back there. Might be a little bit of a source. I don't totally worry about the defense. It just seems a little different than last year's defense. I know they sort of, they weren't ever an explosive defensive team who created tons and tons of turnovers, but they seemed a little bit better at shutting teams down and not giving up so many yards in that game. Like, honestly, until, Russ got hurt, I thought they were going to lose that game. Now, they shut down the Seahawks in that fourth quarter, got that key pick. Watching that game, I thought they were going to lose another one. But So good play by the Rams to get that win. So, they probably get a loss that you thought they were going to get a win in the regular season and a win where you thought they were going to get a loss. I think their record's probably what you thought it would in and around be. But, I think there are more questions than I thought there would be at this point in the season for the Rams. And we'll switch to the Seahawks here. I think there are a lot of questions coming up. Good win last week versus San Francisco 49ers. Now, granted, they had their starting quarterback get hurt in Trey Lance, which probably sort of helped things. Also, the Niners running back situation, Trey Sermon doesn't seem to be the answers. The Niners are getting a handful of their running backs back this week, so they'll probably be okay, but we'll see about the Jimmy G situation. But good win by the Seahawks last week, but another tough loss. And I feel like if Geno's there for a long term, a couple of weeks here, that was a bad, finger injury to Russell Wilson. Maybe he can play through it, but then you have a quarterback with a bad finger on his hand, trying to make passes. So either way, you're probably in a bad situation at that quarterback spot. I'm getting a little worried this Seahawks team might be the one that ends up dropping in this NFC West division here.
Now, I will say this. I hate it as a fan of any team when my team hurts the opposing quarterback and then the opposing backup comes in and he starts playing well. A lot of times when teams are game planning for, the opposing team, they start watching game film, and then they get their practice squads to try and emulate what the opposing team is going to bring. You kind of train for one guy, and when another guy comes in, even though Geno Smith has some similar skill sets as Russell Wilson, Russell Wilson's a better quarterback, but you could see that when he came into the game, he was really affecting the game. I thought that so when the game started off, I was a little bit at ease. I thought it would take them a little while to get going, the Rams, just because they were playing on a short week and coming off of a loss. As the game progressed, we got later into that second quarter and early into that third quarter, I felt a lot more comfortable. Like, they're going to pull off this win. As the game goes on, you're going to start seeing the discrepancy in talent level between these two teams. But when Geno Smith came in, it almost seemed like that gap really shortened. Now, ultimately, they were able to kind of figure him out. But, this is tough for the Seahawks, especially if Russell Wilson's going to be out for a while. That middle finger is really important, especially when it comes to the way that he grips the ball. I really hope that it's not a long-term injury for him. He's been a pretty healthy guy pretty much throughout his entire career. I don't think he's missed a game like in 160 starts or something like that. But it's definitely concerning. And if I was a Seahawks fan, I'd be a little worried.
Yeah. The worst three things for a quarterback: shoulder, hands, back, are pretty much your three key injury points that you don't want to mess with, because that starts messing with your throws and stuff. He might be fine like physically everywhere else, and he just can't get a good grip on the ball, can't get the ball sort of where you want to. So then you're playing that game. Do you play him with a little bit worse Russell Wilson, or do you put in Geno Smith, where you really sort of have to game plan around having a turnover-prone quarterback, which really is a vastly sort of different thing than what Russell Wilson is. Russ, not really a turnover quarterback. Geno has always been sort of high turnover rate. Now, he's been a little bit more aggressive in his throws. Maybe that offense opens up a little bit, but it's just really, really interesting how that'll play out. Sort of see how the Seahawks continue this season. They aren't dead yet, but I think if we end up with 3 to 4 weeks of Geno Smith, that might put the Seahawks in so much of a hole. I don't think they can pull themselves out of it in this NFC West. If they were sitting, in the division where the Green Bay is, I think they'd be fine. But in this NFC West, I don't think you can give up too many games there.
Yeah, you basically hit the nail on the head there. This division is so tough, with so many good teams, that it's really hard to give up so much ground, especially early on in the season, and then try to make it up at the end. Now, I will say that the Seahawks kind of went this way last season. They started off kind of up and down like a roller coaster with pretty bad defense play, and then as the season progressed, they got better and better, and the defense started to play a lot better too. So maybe it's something that they're kind of hoping for this season. But again, not something I would want to do is start, having to play catch up against these other teams in the NFC West.
Yeah, and already 2 losses at home for Seattle. I think they only lost 1 game last year at home. Traditionally, a real cauldron for Seattle at home, and they already have 2 losses there. So, that sort of plays in it. It means you got to win some games on the road. They got a nice win versus the Niners on the road last week. We'll just see with the Seattle Seahawks right now. But that gives our Thursday night football update. Let's get into the week that is coming up, and we'll travel to London, out to Hotspur Stadium in Tottenham. That would be in London, but
is that the stadium in the back?
Yeah. And the New York Jets are playing the Atlanta Falcons, a barn burner of the game. When we send our teams to London, we send them the best.
I can't believe they actually accepted that.
Also mentioned that none of the Atlanta Falcons receivers are traveling in this game as well. So if you have Kyle Pitts, he might actually be good this week, because I don't know who else they have to throw to other than the random Cordell Patterson, who has now turned into the second best offensive player in the league. Before he was just a special teams guy for the previous, 8 seasons. But somehow Arthur Smith has been able to unlock that, and really nothing else on the offensive side of things. But New York Jets, Atlanta Falcons in London. Falcons are 3-point favorites here. The total sits at 45.5. The first half total sits at 1.5. The total sits at 21.5. The Jets coming off their first big win of the season, a win over the Titans, also who didn't have their receivers in that game. So the Jets are getting a little bit of luck here, but I thought the Jets played pretty well in that game. The defense continued to be pretty solid, but the offense finally hit some big plays. We'll get into the Titans and their defensive play and possible offensive flying play coming up. They have a very interesting matchup against the other bottom feeder in the league this week. But what'd you make of the New York Jets win here?
It was a good win. Obviously, they had certain things fall, in their favor, with the wide receivers being out, both of the wide receivers being out, which was a huge detriment to the offense for Tennessee. But, Jets did what they had to do. They had to come in and they had to take care of business. It's exactly what they did. Defensively, I think they were really impressive. I know, like I said, Tennessee didn't have their wide receivers, the star wide receivers out there, but they still had Derrick Henry and they still had, Tannehill, and they were able to really make some noise on the defense side of the ball, which was really impressive. Offensively, I still think they're going to struggle, especially when they go up against a team that has a better defense, or a defense for that matter. But, they took care of business, so you have to give them a little bit of props there. But how lucky are they? They get to go up against, teams with injured wide receivers back-to-back weeks. It's pretty crazy, and they're probably going to need it. Prior to this news about the wide receivers not traveling with the team, I kind of thought that this was another makeup game for the Falcons, another game that they could win, start to kind of build up that chemistry again. But, without those wide receivers going up against that defense, especially if the Jets defense plays the way they did last week, it's going to be tough.
Yeah, you mentioned the Falcons. They played pretty much the prototypical Falcons game last week versus the Washington football team. I think if you had a tape of the Matt Ryan era, they would pretty much show this game of the Atlanta Falcons. Good enough to compile stats. Can't close out the game, give the ball up to Washington, let Washington drive down, and get the game-winning touchdown. That's pretty much the Falcons season in a nutshell for the 10 years that Matt Ryan has been there. Continue to lose. I don't know what else to say about them other than they're a bad football team who can somewhat put up numbers. Defense still terrible. But let's look at this game a little bit. -3 for the Falcons. I'd probably lean New York Jets here a little bit, but I probably wouldn't be real bullish on this as one of our mutuals. We could probably find something else. But I definitely don't want the Falcons as favorites without wide receivers there, and it being in London. You could maybe convince me a little more if it was in Atlanta and the Jets were going on the road, but there's no advantage here. First-year coaches on both sides, so they probably don't quite know how to handle this London thing. So that negates that. And really, I just think both these teams are really, really bad. What do you make of this game here?
Yeah, unfortunately for London fans out there, they're probably looking at this matchup and they're like, "What's all this then?" I mean, it's not ideal, if I'm having an international sports franchise trying to bring their teams over to build, some sort of fan base. The Falcons and the Jets is probably not the matchup that I'm looking forward to. But this is just the way it works. The way the cookie crumbles. The bad teams are usually the ones that get sent. I remember back when the Rams were really bad. I think they got booked to go to London for 3 years in a row. So that tells you all you need to know. Like I said, prior to the news about the wide receivers probably not taking this trip with the team, I kind of like the Falcons at -3 here. But, now with the wide receivers not playing, the way the Jets defense has been playing, this is probably a game I'm just going to stay away from.
Yeah, it's interesting. I do think, once again, I think Zach Wilson will be better in this game, much like he was in the Titans game. He's facing a defense that will give him those big throws. Now, after this, the Jets go on another streak of playing very difficult defenses. I think those numbers come back to earth. But if you looked at the sort of the schedule, this would probably be the 2-game stretch where you think the Jets can show a little life there. I don't know what life is in the Falcons. Every game sort of plays out the same way. Get behind, come back, and then blow it at the end. So it's just sort of a difficult read on the Falcons. I don't think there is any way I'd ever take the Falcons as favorites, probably the rest of the season. You might can convince me to take them as, underdogs here in that one. During some point in the regular season again, but this is just a wild card team, and especially without the receivers, there's nothing there. Total wise, 45.5. It's really, really difficult to get a read because the Jets are always a candidate to be shut out. So you don't want to ride over there. But as bad as the Falcons defense is here, you probably don't want to play that game on the over side of things either. So I'm a nothing on this total as well.
Yeah, I'm staying away from it completely. Like you said, the Jets offense is nothing to write home about. The Falcons can at sometimes put up some offensive numbers, but again, they don't have their wide receivers coming into this game. You're basically going to look at what I'm assuming is going to be a very heavy tight end usage game. And defensively, the Falcons show really nothing either. So, I guess if there were a game that the Jets could kind of get going like they did last week, it'd be against the Falcons, a team that doesn't really have a lot of, defensive weapons. But I just don't trust the Jets offense enough to feel comfortable about taking anything in this game. So for me, this is just a nice little bonus where once I get up, I turn the TV on and there's football on.
Yeah, much like soccer. You wake up in the morning and there's sports on, and it's the same thing. They're on international break this week, which is why the stadium can be used to football, if you were wondering about that. So the field
I'm sure everyone was wondering.
Well, the field will be just fine. There will not be soccer played on it, just so you're aware. I think the year before, not last year because I didn't go to London, they scheduled one of these and they played a soccer match like the day before, and then they played a football match, the next day. And it's like, the field's not going to be totally recovered by that point. Anyway, let's move on to our next game. Let's just say a shocking 3-1 Bengals team. Probably not all that shocking if you sort of look at who they've beaten,
their opponents,
who they've lost to. But 3-1 still stands out. Packers seem back on track, and that Saints game just seems totally like a aberration. Week 1 token preseason game in that matchup. But funny enough, they are giving respect to the Bengals here. The Bengals are only 3-point dogs at home here. Total sits at 51. First half is 2.5 for the Packers, and total sits at 24.5. This line screams for you just to take the Green Bay Packers here. I do have it highlighted because basically I just don't think the Bengals are all that good. Some of their numbers rank out pretty high, but once again, I think some of that is weighted just based on their opponents. I think their offense might be a little bit legit, like they will be able to always move the ball on offense, but I don't trust that defense right now, and I still think the offensive line has issues. So I think Green Bay's a good matchup here, but, 3 points on the road, and I think everybody and their mother is going to be betting on Green Bay in this one. So that gives me a little bit of pause as well. What do you think of this?
Yeah, I'm actually surprised that the line hasn't shifted much when I was looking at it. I actually have the Packers penciled in as one of my picks, and I'll just go ahead and spoil that for you now. As good as the Bengals have been playing, the opposition just hasn't been of very high caliber. So it's hard to really put too much emphasis on those wins. I will give them their props. So I can't take that away from them. They came out, they win their games against, NFL opponents. So you got to give them that. But I just don't think that they're ready yet. I think that they have a lot of really nice young talent. They have some really good weapons, especially on the offensive side of the ball. But defensively, a lot of their defensive stats are based off the fact that they've played some pretty bad teams. And even when they played against Pittsburgh, hasn't been what you thought they were going to be this season so far. So
we'll keep them in mind for a little bit later, just so you know.
Okay. But it's just hard for me to really, put too much emphasis on those wins. So, just looking at on paper, you're talking about the rating, MVP, one of the best, offensive minds in football, versus a young quarterback with some nice young wide receivers, but still an up and coming team, still a team that needs to build that chemistry. And, you gotta, there's baby steps basically to get to the big game. And the Bengals just aren't quite there yet. So for me, this is an easy one. This is one of my games. I like the Packers in this one.
Yeah, this is one where the Sharps are going to be all over Cincinnati, getting 3 points at home and thinking you wait it. And sometimes I'm just against that. Green Bay's a better football team here. Yes, it's annoying to have the 3-point favorite on the road. Yes, the Bengals are 3-1, but if I lose with Green Bay, I don't feel bad because I think Green Bay's a better team and they'll go in here and beat up on them. So I think we're both going to lean here, and this will probably be our first mutual pick, the Green Bay Packers -3 versus Cincinnati Bengals. The only thing I'd say I'd worry about on the Green Bay side of things is they probably go in here thinking this is once again a glorified exhibition game. They probably get up on them a little bit, and maybe that backdoor cover gets a little bit nervy there at the end if, the Packers sort of pack it in there in the second half after they get up big in this one.
No pun intended.
Yeah, no pun intended. All right. Next up, Detroit Lions versus the Minnesota Vikings. Minnesota Vikings coming off a dreadful performance versus the Cleveland Browns in a 14-7 game. Detroit, we had as one of our mutuals last week, let us down versus the Chicago Bears. I will mention I did bail on it. My heart could not take the Detroit Lions on the road, even in that category. So it was bailed on. I'm sorry to our listeners if they went with the Detroit Lions. I will mention, though, that the Detroit Lions somehow managed to have the ball in the red zone on their first 3 drives and somehow managed to come away with 0 points. So I think this game could have been vastly different if the Detroit Lions had any sort of red zone offense. I think that probably comes into play, having no receivers of note on your team at all. But Detroit coming off probably their worst game of the season so far. They played in that Chicago game, going to Minnesota, who once again, Jekyll and Hyde offense probably was the best in the league for a 2-week stretch there. And then it looked like it couldn't even move the ball last week versus Cleveland Browns at home. Vikings are 10-point favorites, total 49, first half -5.5, total 24.5. What do you make of this one? Even with Detroit, I'm not touching a 10-point Minnesota Vikings line. So you can give me your concepts on this game, but there is 0 chance I take Minnesota Vikings -10. I don't care if they're playing a college team.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I don't know what it is with me this season. I keep on falling in lust. I'll say lust, not love. I keep falling in lust with these really bad teams. And I feel like this is the week where they're going to turn it around. And they let me down. And same thing happened with the Detroit last year. Now, I wasn't as wise as you. And I actually stuck with my Lions pick. And it came back and cost me. I just figured as poor as Chicago looked the previous week.
Was it the
And
second or third time they were in the red zone on their opening possession that you didn't score that you decided to pack in that bet?
it was the first time.
Or the
Once
first
that
one?
happened, yeah, once that happened, I was like, that's it. I was like, this is over. Now, it might be that I feel bad for Goff. Maybe I feel like I owe him something because he was shipped off to Detroit, to the land where quarterbacks are forgotten.
I should
But
probably say if you look at Goff and Stafford's numbers, they're somewhat
they're
similar.
yeah, but ultimately, what it comes down to is wins, and who's got more wins. But that's neither here nor there. So I'm not taking any action on this. As explosive as this Minnesota offense has been, granted, the Cleveland Browns defense is I'm not going to say they're great, but they're pretty good.
I think we're going to get into that with a big game this week with them. So
I thought the shocking part of this was the Minnesota defense. It was a really tight, low-scoring game,
Yeah.
and I didn't think they would be able to really hold that Cleveland offense to as little points as they still were able to put up. So I will say the defense impressed me last week, but the offense disappointed so much that I'm just not touching this game at all.
yeah, I was going to flip it to the other side of things. Detroit getting 10 points. I know you have a little bit of shell shock after last week.
A little bit, yeah.
I don't know if I can quite convince myself to take that 10 because I'm trying to get my head around the Vikings defense here. It basically been a leaking sieve for the first 3 weeks of the season. And then week 4, all of a sudden it shuts down Cleveland. Now, we'll also get into Cleveland's offensive issues while the defense somehow is getting better and better each week. The offense somehow is getting worse and worse each week on that side of things. So I don't know what to make of that. Maybe Minnesota's defense has found a little bit of a happy medium there. In that case, I think they could easily, cover this, and Detroit probably can't score enough on them. But if it goes back to the Vikings defense that was before, I do think the Lions can get points, certainly backdoor this. Any thought on the Lions covering that 10-point margin, maybe getting a backdoor cover here late?
No,
I should say the Lions defense isn't exactly a lockdown unit. They might give up 40 to the Vikings. So.
Now, listen, I'm not going to guarantee this, okay? But I will tell you, because I'm jumping off the line bandwagon this week, this is the week that they'll actually cover. Now, don't put any money on that. I'm letting you know now. But I just can't bring myself to take any Lion bets this week, especially after the way they've disappointed over the last few weeks.
Yeah, definitely so. Now, the Lions do play Cincinnati next week. So we'll see if Cincinnati can sort of be the good, bad team on the football season. Somehow managed to get enough wins to be relevant, beating up on the really, really bad teams here.
I will tell you really quick, though, this particular week, these matches between the Lions and the Vikings and then the Packers and the Bengals, the Lions-Bears matchup is not going to do much for me going into next week. It's going to be that Bengals game versus the Packers game. That's going to be the game that decides what side of the ball I decide to roll with next week between the Lions and the Bengals.
Yeah, definitely. So I probably shouldn't have my eye on games 2 weeks away, but I was sort of eyeing that maybe the Bengals keep this one close, and then we get a huge spread for the Bengals, much like we got in that weird Jacksonville game on Thursday night. Where the Bengals were oddly favored by 7. And, funny enough, the Bengals don't cover a 7-point favorites. So anyway, I was sort of hoping that might come back next week with that Detroit Lions matchup. But I mentioned, keep the Pittsburgh Steelers in your head here. And next up, we got the Denver Broncos going to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Steelers -1. I'm going to read this total out to you. 39.5 is the total.
That's sad.
That's
sad.
So we're playing a teens game in this one. First half is, pick 'em here, half point towards the Steelers, and the total sits at 20 in the first half. So interesting matchup here. Steelers continued to struggle at Green Bay. I thought they were a little frisky, but once again, that offense just cannot generate anything, and Green Bay sort of had a ho-hum easy victory over the Steelers in Green Bay last week. Denver, we talked about it. Baltimore came in there, smacked them around pretty good. We sort of probably saw where Denver, it's not up there in the elite teams, even though they were undefeated at 3-0. That 3-0 was a Jets, Giants, Jags 3-0. So maybe this will be another marker for the Broncos. Are they in that middle low tier where we probably think the Steelers are, or are they a little bit better than that and maybe just under those elite teams? But I'm going to tell you, I kind of like the Steelers in this one. I think the defense can find its way to shut these Broncos down. I don't trust the offense yet, but Big Ben blamed himself, and maybe his hips become
Rightfully
better
so.
in a week. So what do you make of this Broncos-Steelers game?
Yeah, it should come as no shock to anyone that Ben Roethlisberger is taking the blame here because, if you looked at the Pittsburgh Steelers on offense, their running game has improved pretty significantly, from week 1 to where we're at now. I think last week was probably their best performance rushing the ball, and they still weren't able to really do much offensively. And a lot of that had to do with the fact that Ben Roethlisberger just doesn't have much of an arm left. And, of course, I say that, and this week he'll come out and he'll light the Broncos up. But I think they're a good team, and I think that team's going to be very heavily dependent on that defense. So at some point, they have to get a nice balance with the run game and the passing game. You can't put that much pressure on Big Ben to make plays happen because you just can't do it anymore. My question to you is, who are we having at quarterback for Denver? Is it Locke?
Well, that's what I was going to mention. There hasn't been a word on Teddy. He's still, in quote unquote concussion protocol. If it's Drew Lock, I'm definitely all in on Steelers here. If it's Teddy, I'm a little bit more pulled back. But I do think the Broncos offense, we mentioned it once again, they'll be without their top 2 wide receivers here. So I think this offense just is getting less and less dangerous. Yes, I do think the Denver defense can beat the Pittsburgh Steelers, but I think the Steelers might be able to find a way here. It's hard to say if Teddy will be okay or not. I assume they probably will clear him by Sunday, so we're probably getting Teddy Bridgewater, but they haven't said yet, so it's an unknown whether it's Teddy Bridgewater or Drew Lock. I know that's really sort of a very large gap there between Teddy, who's at least a functional NFL quarterback, and Drew Lock, who really shouldn't even be in the league anymore. But anyway, I just think the Steelers defense will come to play here, shut this Broncos team down, and maybe the Steelers can find a couple points here to sort of get them back on track and at least the winning margins. I've sort of given up hope that they will be a contender, but I do think they can at least make themselves a relevant in and around 500 team here.
Now, I understand where you're coming from, and you make some really good valid points. For me personally, I'm nervous about this game either way. I think that I feel a little more confidence rolling with the Steelers if I know, even if Teddy Bridgewater is basically a game time decision, simply because, like you mentioned, the wide receivers being out. Now, if it's Drew Lock, I feel more comfortable with taking the Steelers, but I'm still a little nervous because that Broncos defense can show up at any time. And the way the Pittsburgh offense has been playing, it could be a really close matchup. So I understand why that spread is what it is. But, I mean, right now as it sits, I predict that we're going to get Teddy Bridgewater. And I think it makes it a closer matchup. But without his wide receivers out there, I think it's probably a bit of a stretch to assume that he's going to dominate that Pittsburgh defense. So I kind of like the Steelers here at -1. I don't know if you want to lock it in as mutual or if you want to put some contingencies on it or.
Why
I
don't
know
we
what you
just
want to
put it in the background for now? We'll have it if we come back to it. And then, we'll see where we are at the end of this list here. And if we end up needing it in our 5, we'll throw it in our 5. But any love on the under here? I do think this game, even at 39.5, this is reeking of a, sort of 14-10 type game here. But maybe one of these teams find some offenses. But I think both coaches will be so conservative coming in here. They won't want to lose this. I know 39.5 is really, really low, but I'm not seeing where either team will really want to even risk opening up an offense on this game.
Oh, yeah, I'm expecting a minimum of at least 45 touches between both running backs in this particular matchup. As you stated, I think both coaching staffs are probably going to be nervous to really, let loose out there on offense. They're probably going to be a little conservative coming into this game, and rightfully so, because if either one of these teams has a good chance on offense going up against these type of defenses, it's going to be with that running game, implementing a good run game, and then maybe play action pass once you've implemented the run game. But like I said, I like the Steelers at -1, but I'm nervous either way.
Okay. We'll come back to those, talk about them a little bit later, and see where we are in our mutual 5. All right, let's move on to our next game. We got the Miami Dolphins coming off a really, really poor loss to the Indianapolis Colts. Really looked bad in that game. Tampa Bay Bucks versus New England. It was a big game on TV, but I think it sort of played out how we thought it was. Defensive game. Patriots right there. We'll get into the Patriots later about that decision to try to kick the 55-yard field goal to win it and not go for it on that 4th down and try to get a little bit closer, especially as they were moving the ball well. But Tampa Bay, once again, offense did not look great versus the, a good defensive team, more to what we saw last year. The running game looked a little bit better than it had. But I thought the defense looked better on the front line than it had. But once again, their secondary, Antonio Winfield Jr. now goes out. Their top corner now is Richard Sherman, who was not on the team a week ago. So if that's your top corner, I think their secondary is in a lot of trouble. But, I don't think the Miami Dolphins are the team right now to really give them any sort of trouble, but I do think the spread's a little bit high. So Miami Dolphins at Tampa Bay Bucks. Tampa Bay Bucks 10-point favorites here. Total sits at 47.5. First half is 6.5, and the total sits at 24. Also, Gronk probably going to be out a long while with his injury, so that might affect the offense a little bit here. But what do you make of this Miami-Tampa Bay game?
I'd feel a lot more comfortable taking this Tampa Bay spread if I didn't like this Dolphins defense as much as I do. I think this Dolphins defense, even though they obviously, have had some trouble winning games, they're really gritty. They're going to get in your face. They're going to try and play really aggressively and physically. And I really like that defensively. But, on offense, they just can't muster up enough offense to really win games. And that's going to be their issue going forward. I think this Tampa Bay team is susceptible right now. You saw it versus the Rams. The Rams were able to pretty much do what they wanted against them in that secondary. Kupp had a monster game going up against them. And that's because they have no cornerbacks. Their secondary is decimated, as you stated. And, going back to that Buccaneers-Patriots game, the real winners of that game were all the New England fans, because their team, which is not really good right now, was able to contend with the defending champs. And they were able to say their goodbyes to Brady in a proper way, a way that I'm sure a lot of people have a lot of love for Brady. Obviously, he brought a lot of championships at City, and he's an icon there. So there's definitely no love lost there, but there's also a lot of respect. And now with the news about Gilmore basically being let go, we'll trade it now. It's something that apparently the Tampa Bay Bucks were looking into. Didn't quite work out for them, so they're back to Richard Sherman being their number one guy, which tells you a lot.
Well, it would have been nice 6 years ago.
Yeah, I'm sure they would have taken 6 years ago, but 6 years ago the Bucks weren't really contending, so it's pointless. But Yeah, I think this game has the potential to be either a blowout or a really close matchup, and I just don't know which way I'm leaning. So I'm probably going to stay away from it. But like I said earlier, I think this Tampa Bay team is definitely beatable. But what concerns me is the lack of offense for the Dolphins.
Yeah, you mentioned it. I just can't give you a decisive. I want no part of Tampa Bay -10, and Miami has just been. It's starting to become a little bit. Maybe it's not the quarterback's issue. It's more a coaching and offensive scheme issue. I both think we think Brian Flores is a great coach, but they've had offensive issues in numerous years, going back to when he first got there. And, the first year you say, oh, they don't have anybody. They're, trying to play. And then each year they start adding more and more pieces. And you think, oh, maybe they finally get it. And their offense has just been terrible. It's always pieced together. You never know quite what they're doing on offense. Is it a run scheme? Is it a pass scheme? Are they going deep? Are they playing possession style football? It's just always all over the place. You don't know what you're getting, 1 week from the next. 1 week you're getting 30 carries for Myles Gaskin. The next week you're airing it out, and the running backs aren't even a factor in the thing. And I don't understand this Miami Dolphins offense. And I think it's no longer a player issue. It's become a coaching issue, and it's not talent because they have plenty of, NFL caliber talent on that roster right now. I know Jacoby Brissett is not the greatest NFL quarterback of all time, but he's a serviceable one. And he just looks worthless in the two Dolphins games he's played versus the Raiders. And then last week versus the Colts, where they were just brutally terrible on offense. And that was a home game, mind you. So I can't in good conscience take the Dolphins, +10 when we just saw the Colts, throw up a 27 and the Dolphins only score, I think 7 points, maybe 10 points in that game. But that game was over. So, I think definitely so Tampa Bay can easily get into the mid to high 20s on this Dolphins team. It's whether you think the Dolphins can get to 14, even on this poor secondary of the Tampa Bay Bucks. I'm just a total pass on this game, and sort of seeing if the Dolphins can maybe right themselves. I know they said Tua might be back next week, so maybe there's some life there and they can find some offense in that.
I did figure out a nice little way that the Dolphins can get some offense going. Now it's a little bit of a throwback. I'm sure you remember, but some people might not. Maybe they could try out re-signing Ronnie Brown and Ricky Williams and run that Wildcat again. Because that was the last time that I can remember the Dolphins having a really serious offense, an offense that you had to game plan against. Their offense has just been pretty much MIA for the last few seasons, and a lot of people, me included, thought that Tua was the answer for them this year, and it just doesn't seem like it with the injuries and the lack of weapons there. As you stated, the Buccaneers team looks like they could definitely win this game. I just don't know how they can, how many points they can put up against this defense. This Dolphins defense plays with a lot of pride, even though they haven't really been, one of the most potent defenses out there. I feel like they put it all on the line and they play really tough. So I don't know how many points the Bucs can put up. But I know for a fact that the Dolphins can't put up many. So I'm staying away from this game.
Yeah, well, I think Ricky's getting rich off his pot farm in California. And last I saw Ronnie Brown, he couldn't even walk into the line of scrimmage anymore. So I don't know if that'll be quite as effective as it once was. But anyway, I think this game is just a hard pass. And it'll be interesting to see where it gets ranked on the TV. I don't even know if this one gets viewed. It might be a Monday quick rewatch.
I'm still trying to remember. I don't believe you told me the story of the time you went to Ricky's farm. Did you have a good time?
I did not go to Ricky's farm.
Isn't that when you became a Dolphins fan?
Because it wasn't legal when at the time for Ricky's farm. Anyway, let's move on to the next game. That's probably just as confusing. You probably are a little bit more disappointed in this team. I think the New Orleans Saints, who are coming off just a bad game versus the Giants. Gave the Giants their first win. Just once again, offense was not good. Hot and cold. Jameis once again did not look great. Washington football team, we mentioned it, got a good win. Tyler Heineke drove down versus the Atlanta Falcons. Once again, though, this Washington defense, which is what they're supposed to be based on, was pretty terrible versus the Atlanta Falcons. So I don't know what to make of them. You also have the weird thing where the Washington trainer is apparently a drug dealer. So I don't know how that affects them, other than maybe some of them might have received products from said trainer and might have their name on a list with the FBI, which probably affects your brain a little bit going into a game, I think. Anyway, Saints, Washington. Washington is a 2-point dog here at home. Total sits at 43.5. First half is a pick 'em with a half point towards Washington, and the total sits at 21 here. What do you make of this game? Because I don't know what I'm getting from the Saints. We've gotten 2 blowout wins and 2 duds, and Washington right now I just think is a bad football team. So what do you make of this?
Well, the fact that Washington lost their starting quarterback pretty much early on the season really set a downward spiral for this team. Defensively, we thought they'd be able to at least keep up. The defense was good enough that they were going to keep them in games. Unfortunately for them, defense has not been what they were showing they were going to be, what we thought they were going to be. They're not even close to what they were last year. So with that being said, I think that the Saints here are a better team. Okay. And the reason the Saints lost last week was the week that I finally got off my New York Giants bandwagon.
I should say I got on the Giants last week and had a nice little win.
Of course. See, I think I'm catching on to your techniques here. You wait for me to get off of a team, and that's when you know they're going to win. So that's when you jump on.
Yeah, I know. I ran with the sharps. It was very difficult for me to click that button, but I did click the button, and I was certainly happy with it. But once again, I watched a lot of that game, and the Saints offense just I think we're seeing, even with a Drew Brees who couldn't throw the ball beyond 8 yards, the difference between having a Drew Brees and having pretty much a mid-tier quarterback running that offense, because it's just not smooth right now. Also Michael Thomas has not played for the Saints. I think they thought Marquez Callaway was going to come in there and, sort of take his spot as the dominant receiver. Really, the Saints are pretty much just as bad as the Lions in receiving right now. It's just not a good receiving room. So you're either taking here the Saints that'll probably get this win because they probably are a little bit better on the defensive end of things, or you think the Washington football team, who really should have lost to those same Giants 2 weeks ago on that Thursday night football game where the Giants basically handed them that win on the stupid offsides. But you think Washington finds a way to game their way through this and sneak one. But I think you're probably better off riding the flow of the Saints. Good one week, bad the next week. So it's probably a good Saints week this week.
Yeah, I think that the Saints are obviously, Drew Brees and Winston. There's a huge gap between talent between these two guys. Now, in terms of physical abilities, I think Winston, obviously, he's younger, he's faster, he's bigger, stronger. He's got more tools at his disposal physically. The issue is mentally. Drew Brees was probably one of the smartest quarterbacks, and the fact that he was under Sean Payton for such a long time didn't hurt him. The Saints are going to be as good as their offense can be balanced. You can't put too much on Winston's shoulders, especially when you don't have, your main wide receiver. It's hard to replace a guy like, it's not every day that you have a wide receiver that walks in and you're like, oh, yeah, we don't need our guy. He can stay out as long as he wants. This guy's going to be the next guy. It's hard. Michael Thomas is as much love him or hate him, okay, because I don't like the guy personally. I think he's very brash, and as most wide receivers are, he's a big diva, but he's very talented. I'll give him that. A guy can go up there and make plays. he can change the outcome of a game by himself. So it's hard to replace a guy like that. Now, when you don't have a weapon like Michael Thomas, you really have to learn to be balanced, especially with a quarterback like Winston, who has been known to make plenty of mistakes. I mean, his last year in Tampa Bay, he led the league in turnovers. So Kamara's been playing better. I feel that if they can get a good balance going, especially against this Washington defense that's been a little lackluster, I think they'll be okay. I think they can pull off this win. The question is, how much do you trust them to actually, stay balanced? I don't know if I can. Even though I think they're going to win this game, I don't know how comfortable I feel taking it.
Yeah, I know. I want to have the Saints, but I probably need 2 more days to sort of talk myself into it. And
I'll put it in my maybe column.
Yeah, I just don't know if I could quite go there. I don't like this Washington football team, but honestly, if you were giving me Winston or Heineke right now, I probably lean a little more towards Heineke because I'd at least seen him, move the ball. The other thing I've noticed, they're sort of putting Taysom Hill in there more and more and more. I'm wondering how long Sean Payton goes if, the hot and cold of this offense continues where he just, said, screw it and throws Taysom Hill in there full time because clearly they probably aren't going to re-sign Jameis Winston from what we've seen these first 4 weeks. Next year, they'll probably be looking for a new quarterback. So, if they aren't going to sign him, it's not really a big deal to bench him right now. So that should be interesting. There are too many factors going into the Washington football team. I mentioned the FBI raid on the trainer. That gives me a little bit of pause, and just the, really, really poor play of the defense. The team was lucky to win that stupid game versus Atlanta last week. They could very, very easily not have a win this season. So we could be having a totally different conversation. This could be, even more points to the Saints if Washington didn't have 2 of those wins that they sort of lucked out in. So I'm probably a pass on this game, but we can't put the Saints, on the side here if we need it coming back. But next up, I probably am going to be heavy on this one. Philadelphia Eagles go to the Carolina Panthers. You mentioned Stephon Gilmore gets traded to the Carolina Panthers. Really, really great move there by Carolina, shoring up even more of that defense, replacing J.C. Horn, who's going to be out with the broken foot, with really a better cornerback than you had in the rookie there. And if you can sign Gilmore long-term, you really got to lock down secondary there for a couple years. So Carolina's 3-point favorites. McCaffrey might come back. Tough loss versus the Dallas Cowboys. Really a bad quarter. That third quarter, the defense let him down. Offense let him down. A little bit of Sam Darnold pickage, but otherwise they were sort of in that game. But their first bad loss. And then total of 45. First half -3 for the Panthers. Total 22.5. Philadelphia once again looks porous on defense. Now, that needs to be said. It was versus the Kansas City Chiefs. Everybody looks porous, but this defense seems to be getting worse and worse and worse every week. I will say their offense looked better, but once again, that's versus that Chiefs defense, who right now, I'm pretty much anyone I think can run on, possibly throw on as well. It's a little more difficult to throw on them, but you can certainly run on them. So Eagles, once again, poor. I really like the Carolina Panthers here, -3. I think they bounce back. There's word that Christian McCaffrey probably will be back for this game. I don't know if they probably hold him out thinking they can get this win and shore up his hamstring even more. But if he's 100% go, they probably will play him because Carolina Panthers really, I think, won him back in this one. So Carolina -3, I'm really bullish on. What do you make of this game?
I actually have Carolina as one of my picks also. And as mentioned, I think the Gilmore trade was huge. You took a defense that's been playing pretty good already now, albeit, it's been against some pretty bad teams, but they've still shown up. And even against that really potent Dallas offense, I felt like that first half, I thought they were in the game, and I thought they could possibly win that game. It wasn't until that second half where things started falling apart. As you mentioned, Darnold started doing Darnold-type things. But pretty much throughout this whole season, he's been pretty clean. And I like that. It's something we're not accustomed to seeing from him coming from the New York Jets. So I think that they have a really good shot at winning this game, as you mentioned it.
Yeah,
I think that secondaries. Go ahead.
I was going to say the other thing, we'll get to it when we get to the Cowboys, but I'm beginning to think the Cowboys are, believe it or not, a good football team. I don't think they're quite to that top tier level, but I do think they're just under that. The defense has started to play better. Offense is, I think, at a perfect rhythm. So, I don't think that's really a bad loss for Carolina. They played a bad quarter. Game got away from them. They pushed, towards the end of that fourth quarter to try to make it a bit of a game. So I don't hold that against them. I still think this is a pretty good football team here. And I really love the -3.
Yeah, I mean, Dallas, we know for a fact that they have really potent offense. So they're gonna really, threaten you offensively. Their issue has always been defensively, but as you mentioned, they've been playing better defensively. And I think Diggs has a big reason to why that defense is playing better. He's been a playmaker. I believe he's gotten an interception in every single game so far.
Yeah.
Now it seems like we're talking about the Cowboys, so I digress. I'll step back from talking about the Cowboys. But as you mentioned, it was a really tough team. I think Cowboys are better than we gave them credit for. We texted about it a little bit back and forth where you said, I think this Cowboys team is actually better than we think. And I was like, yeah, I think they are. Their issue was never offense. It was never offensively. It was always defensively. They were just really porous. So I'm not going to take too much away from the Panthers for losing that matchup. But I think the Panthers are a better team right now. And, they're getting better, obviously, with additions. So it's McCaffrey comes in, whether he's 100% or not. I think they utilize him enough to at least make sure that they win this game. And I like the Panthers here -3.
Yeah, so we got our definite second on our mutuals. So we got Green Bay -3, Carolina -3 to start out the year. Anything on the Eagles? After last week versus the Chiefs, it was the normal Chiefs shootout, but I think that defense has just fallen off, and I don't know how many more wins the Eagles are going to get on the year.
Well, we talked about it during the preseason. We talked about how their best defensive attribute is their pass rush. And unfortunately for them, that pass rush, that front seven, was starting to get up there in age. And as this season is progressing now, we're only in week 5, but you're noticing the defense slowing down, that pass rush is slowing down, which is, obviously exposing that secondary. And when they can't get anything going offensively, because offensively they've been pretty much Jekyll and Hyde. They're good one game, they're okay the next game, they're bad the next game. If they can't get anything going offensively, then those defensive woes really, are that much more highlighted. So a little disappointing. I would like to see them get on track and play some consistent football, which they haven't done. But like I said, I think that the Panthers here are just a better team. So I like the Panthers.
Yeah. Also, after watching what Tyreek Hill did to him, DJ Moore might have a similar game for Carolina versus them. Similar player, not quite as explosive, but Tyreek lit them up nicely.
And I think I was going up against Tyreek Hill in fantasy.
You were because a friend of ours has them on their team.
And I think they also had Patrick Mahomes.
They do. Okay. Somebody was smart enough to draft the same person, all their Chiefs.
That's a nice combo.
All right. Next up, Tennessee Titans coming off a disappointing loss to the New York Jets. Sans wide receivers, I will say. I'm not sure that quite excuses it, but anyway, they play the Jacksonville Jaguars, who we talked about on the Thursday night game. Other than their coach being at his own bar, filling up big booty blondes, nothing to say much about the Jaguars. I will say I very, very much wanted to take the Jaguars in the +4.5, but this stupid Urban Meyer thing is rolling into a nonsensical story that is sort of maybe becoming more of a distraction. It's just adding on to the layers of dysfunction sort of there in Jacksonville. So I'm not quite as bullish here about that. I'm curious about your take on the Tennessee Titans. Once again, that defense is just horrendous. And The thing I don't know is I don't think it's as bad as their offensive line. Their offensive line is even worse. The Jets were on top of Tannehill that whole game. It's take two-step drop. You better get rid of it because the defensive line is on top of you. And I think it's sort of mucking up too Derrick Henry run lanes. He does have good yardage totals, but he's having to work really, really hard to get those. So this Tennessee Titans team, I do think they'll still win the AFC South, but I think that's sort of a view of the AFC South here. Jacksonville, not good. Texans, even worse. And Colts, the injury bug has just hit them, and they just aren't a factor right now. Maybe they become one. But Tennessee Titans-wise, what do you make of this team?
Well, yeah, I'll start off with Tennessee. I think Tennessee, I expected a lot more from them, and they haven't quite delivered so far this season. As our colleague Dynamite, is always stating, he thought that defensively they were going to be better. I thought they'd be better. I didn't think they were going to be good, but I thought they'd be better.
I think we thought maybe a Cowboys level. I don't think we think the Cowboys defense is good, but it's now able to slow teams down, where this one is getting up chunk plays to Wilson, who I think had no passing yards for the previous 3 games.
Now, I do think that the Cowboys defense is slightly better than what I thought the Titans defense would be, if that's clear at all.
Yeah.
I just, I'm very disappointed in that Titans defense, and I'm more disappointed in the Titans offense. Now, as you mentioned, they did have some injuries with the wide receivers, and obviously those are 2 big weapons on the outside that you're missing. But you expect that team to have enough firepower on offense, enough continuity on offense to at least, be able to contend with the Jets. But unfortunately for them, that offensive line, as you said, has been bad. And I think that's a testament to how good Derrick Henry actually is. As you mentioned, yes, he's putting up big numbers. He's putting up a lot of yards, but a lot of it is from work that he's doing on his own. These are tackles he's breaking. These are ankles he's breaking. It's not so much the offensive line really, busting holes open, from which they do from time to time. But, it's the NFL. You're all professionals. At some point, there's bound to be a hole, even by the worst offensive line here and there. So a little disappointing for Tennessee and Tennessee Titans fans. I think that this is not exactly where they want to be. But you also look at the makeup of this division, and you're probably not sweating it too much because, as you mentioned, I still think they're going to win this division just based off the fact that you got some pretty bad teams. Houston looked like they might have been at least a black sheep in that division until injuries started hitting them. The Colts, I thought, would be contenders. Obviously, injuries also are playing a role there. And then you have the Jaguars, which I'll get into now, and that whole situation with Urban Meyer. I did not know about this, okay? I go show you how much Jacksonville football I pay attention to. I had no clue. I had no idea. This morning, I'm scrolling to Twitter, and I see a second video surfaces with Urban Meyer, and I'm like, Urban
you
Meyer.
didn't see the second one where he literally had his hands up her butt?
Yes, that's the one I saw. I saw the second one. I'm shocked. I heard Feinbaum and all these, different analysts talking, and they're saying they're not shocked. This is who he is. But I'm shocked that he'd be that dumb. And I'm not trying to insult the guy, okay?
No, you can insult him. He's a moron.
You have to be dumb, seriously dumb, to pull stuff like that. Not only at your own bar, it's his bar, correct?
Yes, it's his.
So not only
whatever
is it your own
ownership percentage, but it's named after him. Yes.
So not only is it your own establishment, but you decide to stay the night instead of travel with your team. And there's cameras everywhere. You can't get away with anything anymore nowadays. And it's your first year coach with a team that's struggling. And this is what you decide to do after losing a game. I think you have to be dumb to do something like that. And I think it's going to cause a big distraction, not just right now. I think going forward, it's going to be a distraction. The type of climate that we're in right now in America, this kind of stuff doesn't just slide by. Now, it could be, it happened to Robert Kraft, but he's an owner.
Yeah.
He's not a coach. It's a little difference, actually a big difference there. So I think this is going to be a distraction going forward. I think this is going to hurt a team that's trying to find their identity and trying to develop them, their young star players, and it's going to hurt them going forward. So I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if, this is a 1-year deal or if he keeps losing games, this is their excuse to get rid of him. But you have to be dumb to pull something like that. So just for that reason, I'm taking the Titans at -4.5.
Yeah. Speaking on that, he made it worse by just coming out and making up his phony excuse. So they just wanted me to dance with them and all that. Just be like,
I've never seen that type of dance.
I mean, I just, come out, say the video, be like, yeah, some hot big booty blonde was up on me. What the hell would you do? I was intoxicated.
I had a few drinks.
Well.
Exactly. Don't try to fib. Don't try to lie.
Yeah.
You can come out, because first of all, when you lie like that apology, it seems completely irrelevant. It makes no difference to me whether he apologized or not. He came out and said, I apologize to my team and I apologize to my wife. First of all, you basically cheated on your wife. Second of all, your team, after losing, you left them behind and stayed behind to try and do something like this. So
try to hook up with a hot young blonde.
Yeah, and now obviously the young girl's family, which it's not her fault. She's trying to have fun. I'm not pointing fingers at anybody here. I'm not blaming anybody. I'm not casting any stones. But now the young lady's family is coming out and saying that she's really distraught by this whole situation, and she thinks that her job actually opened up an investigation where they thought that there might be a conflict here, and she might actually even end up losing her job, which is pretty sad. Again, you have to be dumb to do this kind of stuff, especially this day and age.
The disappointing thing is, the Jacksonville hadn't won, but each game they had gotten a little bit better to the point where they probably should have won that Bengals game. That poor decision right before halftime to go for it instead of going up, like 17-0. You end up getting nothing. It's 14. Then the defense breaks down in the second half. The Jaguars were getting better and better. Lawrence played his best game on Thursday, and then you decide to be selfish. Don't go on the team plane. Go to Columbus, hang out, party, mix with a woman who's pretty much younger than your daughters, for God's sakes. Not to cast any stones there, but dude, come on. And then to
wait
come
till
out,
the offseason.
Yeah. And then to come out and just try to pretend like there was nothing there when we all have the tape. We can all see it. It's on YouTube on 500 different billion channels. It's on TikTok. It's on Twitter. Everybody's seen the videos. We know what went down. None of us are stupid. I think we've all been young people at bars as well. So we know what happened, so it's just dumb. It's disappointing. I wanted to take Jacksonville, and I just don't know how this is going to affect them. Julio Jones is going to be out. They said A.J. Brown probably is a go, but I don't know how healthy he is. Sort of gauging from the verbiage of Mike Vrabel, it seems like he might be out there to try to keep the defense honest and not like they're going to be sending him on, 50-yard go routes at full sprints. So I think we probably have to pass as much as I want to take this Jacksonville team getting 4.5 at home. But I'm not messing with it because I think there's a solid chance, this Jacksonville team might lay down here. The only bonus is they're a young team, so they might play up to the competition. But, now I'm wondering, I said last week, people should relax, let Urban get his gauge. But with that video coming out,
he heard you.
Yeah.
That was the problem. He got a little too relaxed.
With the Cons being sort of as conservative as they are, they probably didn't love the look of this video. If it's a couple bad weeks, it might be just one of those mutual parting of ways, and we reset this thing here. So probably a pass overall, but I'm interested to see if this Tennessee Titans defense can at least maybe contain this Jaguars offense. You mentioned now DJ Shark got hurt in the game before, so the Jacksonville's starting to lose receivers. They're down 2 receivers now. Only Chenault's left there a little bit, so Jaguars a little bit reduced through the air a little bit, but the run game has been coming, but probably a pass overall. We'll move on to the next game here. New England Patriots going to the Houston Texans. Texans coming off a terrible game in Buffalo. I don't think Davis Mills is the answer at quarterback.
I don't think so.
Basically, I think you could have put a cone back there and they probably could have moved the ball better than they did. New England coming off that tough loss to Tampa Bay. I wanted to get your opinion on the ending of that game. New England was moving the ball pretty solidly. They were getting 5, 6, 7-yard passes off pretty easy there. It was a 4th and 6, I believe. They chose to kick a 56-yard field goal in the pouring rain in New England with Nick Folk, who I think has been kicking since you and I were children.
It feels like it.
I just know he's been around for a very, very long time. So, that clearly is on the edge of his range in pouring rain outdoors in New England. I don't love that decision. What did you make of that decision? Do you think they should have gone for it, or do you just try to sneak that win?
I'll be honest with you. I had no issue with it. And the reason why I had no issue with this is because nobody really thought that New England was going to be able to win this game, let alone stay competitive. Like I said earlier, I thought the winners of this matchup were New England fans because they got a chance to see their not hometown hero, but their hero, their team's hero, who brought championships, not a championship, championships to the city. And, they got to see their team be competitive. They were close. They were within, striking distance to win that game. I get why they made that decision. They probably felt like there was no way they were going to win the game. And once they got to when they were within the game, they're like, let's not blow. Let's do what we. I get it. You look at the analytics, and the analytics tell you differently. But just from a standpoint of just like a regular fan, I can see where they came from. I see why people are upset, but I would have done the same thing personally.
Yeah, I thought as the game played out, I thought they were getting those 5, 6-yard passes pretty easy. And I thought they could have hit another one, especially with the depleted secondary at Tampa Bay. Mac Jones was in rhythm. I think he had just, broken a 16 for 16 streak in that game. And I just thought maybe you try to inch this a little closer. Now, Folk did hit the post on that. So he was right there. If, it's a half inch, more to the right, he kicks a field goal, they win the game. Nobody's saying anything. So, it's a toss up. I just thought with the way the game that was playing out, maybe try to get it a little closer. You make that a 45-yarder. You probably win that game, and maybe that kicks off your season because now New England is 1-3. They should get this win. We'll talk about this game. -9, though. You probably can't convince me, as good as I thought Mac Jones looked, to take a -9, even if it is versus this very poor Texans team here.
Yeah, there's no way that I'm taking this. And I know that Mac Jones looked good, but he looked good against Richard Sherman and company.
Yeah.
That's probably one of the reasons why he looked good. And I mean, as far as trying to inch it closer to go for the win for that last game for the Patriots, listen, you were going up against the defending champs, and I know that they haven't been playing as good as everybody expected them to be playing, but they have a lot of big names, big players. Big players make big plays and big moments, and it didn't get any bigger than that. Who's to say they wouldn't have got stopped? And then they're like, why didn't they try to win the game or kick the field goal? So, there's both sides to every story. I think that they went the right route personally, but as far as this game's concerned, yeah, I'm not touching this game. I think the spread's too wide. I don't think that what we saw last week from the Patriots is what we're going to get this week from the Patriots. And even though this Texans team has been pretty bad defensively, I think at times they can play okay, especially when they're going up against teams that aren't considered elite offensively. So I think this might be a closer matchup than people think.
Yeah, I do think it'll be a little bit closer than people think. I think the Patriots probably go back into their little bit of a conservative shell here. I don't know what the Texans have to offer here because they don't really have another option behind Davis Mills. They aren't going to go out and sign, a free agent like Cam Newton or something like that. That makes zero sense for this team who, theoretically is sort of trying to lose games here. So they don't particularly, I think they were a little stunned at how good they were to start the season when Tyrod Taylor was their starting quarterback. But I don't think they want to be this bad with Davis Mills, but they don't have much of an option there. But, 9 just seems too much. But also on the other end of that, I'm not touching a 9 with this Texans team whose defense is porous. And now their offense really has nothing to offer here. The total 39.5, 2 under 40s. This week. I think that shows you the trend of what the NFL has been this year. Whole lot of unders covering. The offense is way, way down from what it was a year ago. Some of that probably has to do with stadiums being filled, more penalties called and stuff like that, to set that back. So I just a pass on this game. This one's probably another dud that doesn't make it on the TV too much as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it'll make an appearance here and there on Red Zone, but other than the wife watching it in the room, I don't think I'll be tuning in much.
Yeah. The other thing, Damian Harris and that running back crew has been really disappointing for the Patriots here. I don't know if that's a sort of a thing with the offensive line that's been, I think, worse than we thought. I think we thought going in their offensive line would be one of their best things. It hasn't been. Do you think maybe this is where the Patriots get that running game going a little bit?
I mean, this is where you should get it going, but even then, let's say they do get the running game going. You're talking about a very low scoring game with probably a lot of punts here and there on both sides of the field. So I don't like this game. I think that they definitely need to focus a lot more on. I would personally cut the umbilical cord and let their young quarterback kind of start flinging. I know he doesn't have the weapons to really fling it too, but at some point you got to let him start to kind of at least get a feel for what it's like to just sling the ball out there. And you're not really winning games and you're not really being competitive. So, I mean, if you're in a game, I get it, play a good balanced game. Bill Belichick is going to preach that, obviously. But, bad games against bad teams, I think you got to let them develop and just go out there and just sling it.
Yeah, definitely so. All right, next up, Chicago Bears coming off a solid win versus the Detroit Lions. Though their one offensive resource, David Montgomery, got hurt, will not be playing for a while. And that probably hurts them. The Las Vegas Raiders didn't have the magic Monday night versus the Los Angeles Chargers. That was probably the worst game they played, but they'd been in a real stretch there, starting with Baltimore, going to Pittsburgh, then coming back home, playing Miami, then going to Los Angeles, playing that Chargers game. That's a hard sect here, but the total in this one, -5.5, gives me a little bit of pause, even as bad as I think this Bears team is. Total at 44.5, first half, 3.5 for the Raiders, total 22 in the first half. What do you make of this Bears-Raiders game here?
When I was looking at this particular matchup, I actually didn't, for some weird reason, I didn't hesitate much. I know it's a pretty big spread, and I know that they're coming off of a loss, but I like the Raiders at 5.5, -5.5. I think that this Bears offense, especially, with the young quarterback in the back and Montgomery being hurt, I think this is really going to have them take a step back. And that defense has not been playing, to the level they played last season. Even with the big names still there, they haven't really been producing a lot of pressures defensively. So I think this is one of those games where, the Raiders come out and they just explode on offense the way they've been doing pretty much all season long. Especially if they get no pushback from this Bears defense. I think this is going to be a pretty much easy game. The question here is that Raiders defense, can they do enough against a depleted Bears offense to really, cause havoc and shut this offense down? I think they can. So I kind of like the Raiders here at -5.5.
Yeah, I leaned that way, especially with Montgomery out. And you mentioned the Bears defense. We talked about it. It looked like a good defensive game versus those Lions, but we mentioned those first 3 possessions for the Lions. They were down in the red zone 3 straight times. That game could have been 21, 14 to start out right off the bat, but the Lions did not score. I don't foresee the Raiders going to the red zone 3 straight times and not getting any points out of it. And with Montgomery out, who they really leaned on, and he looked really good in that game versus the Lions. I just don't think they'll have enough, but you mentioned it. It's sort of where you grade this Raiders defense. If they get pressure on Fields, which I think with their porous line, they will do. Fields, it's not a large margin, but his passer rating under pressure is 13.5. That's not good. So I think if the Raiders get pressure, they did not last week versus the Chargers, but that's a very good Chargers offensive line. And they had in the previous weeks. If they get pressure here, I think they could blow this game out. So, I'll lean toward you on this one, and we'll take the Raiders minus the 5.5 in that one. All right, we'll move on to our next game. The aforementioned Chargers, 2.5-point favorites at home versus the Cleveland Browns. We talked a little bit about that Cleveland Browns Minnesota matchup. This Cleveland Browns defense, it started out porous. Now some of that might be, Chiefs, playing, and but the last 2 weeks, and it has looked lights out. And then you flip to the other side. The offense started out, great in the first half of that Chiefs game. And it seems like quarter by quarter of each game of the season, it's getting worse and worse and worse. And basically all they have now is handoff to Chubb, handoff to Hunt, swing pass to Hunt. They did come out with the Baker Mayfield partially torn labrum. I'm a little dubious of that you get the injury report and then it's like, oh, he'll be fine. He's still going to play the whole season. I'm like, well, if that's the case, then he's not really that hurt, is he? If he's okay to play the rest of the season. So I think they were making a little bit of excuses why this offense isn't that explosive. But that defense is really something to come up against. You got the other side of the spectrum here. This Chargers team really should be undefeated if they don't blow that Cowboys game with bad red zone things. But they seem to do that every game. What do you make of this Cleveland Chargers matchup here?
I think this is one of those matchups that I'm actually going to enjoy watching, but I'm not going to enjoy betting on. And it's because I like both teams. I think both teams are actually really tough. Now, I know that Cleveland has been falling off a little bit offensively, and defensively they haven't been exactly what we expected from them. But I think our expectations for them were so high that even playing at the level that they're playing now, they're still a good football team. Now, you have to take into account they've had some injuries, with their key wide receivers. Odell Beckham came back off, obviously, but, he looks like he's not 100% yet. And Odell Beckham by himself is not going to instill fears in defenses, not the way he used to, at least when he was with the Giants. With all that being said, I don't know which way I'm leaning on this game. I think that the Cleveland Browns defense can play better. This Chargers team has been playing great. As you mentioned, if it wasn't for a few mistakes they made in that Cowboys game, you're looking at an undefeated Chargers team. And I had a lot of love for them last season. I really like Herbert. I thought that, this is definitely their guy going forward. He shows that he has all the tools. He's definitely got a lot, going upstairs in his head. He's a really smart guy. And he's got some nice weapons also too. So that doesn't hurt. I think this, like I said, this is one of those games where I'm probably just going to sit back and enjoy watching this football game. I think that if the Browns want to stay in this game and really have a shot at winning, they have to get more balance. Last year, when they were really a scary team to face off against, is because they were so balanced on offense. Now, they did have, their wide receivers back then, but it was all about the balance. You had 2 really good running backs that were basically pounding defenses into submission. And then when you least expected it, they come with the play action to, one of those wide receivers that like to make big plays. So I'm just, like I said, I'm just going to sit back, watch this game, and try and enjoy it. I don't think I want to put any action on this game because I don't really know which way I'm leaning.
Yeah, I agree. This is probably the best defense the Chargers team has come up against defensively. So I want to see what that offense looks like versus a really, really tough defense who probably can get pressure on Herbert. Now, Herbert has been one of the best quarterbacks, QBR under pressure, but we'll see when he gets real pressure. Even Clowney started to make some noise in that, Minnesota Vikings game. So if they can get those two edge, Garrett and Clowney, humming on all cylinders, this could be an interesting matchup. And then I want to see what the Browns offense does. So I'm probably a pass overall totally on this game, but it should be a really, really entertaining game to watch overall in that one. All right, we'll move on next to the New York Giants, who got their first win of the season versus the Saints. Barkley started to look a little bit lively. Maybe he's starting to come into a little bit. The receivers, while still it's an odd passing game, but at least they looked explosive a little bit more in this one. Defense looked okay, so maybe the Giants finally starting to come around. I'm still not totally sold, but I'm going to tell you the Dallas Cowboys last couple of weeks looked really, really good. The balance on offense is just great right now. Run, pass, hit the explosive play, grind them away with Elliott and Pollard. The line is mashing people. Just love how that looks. And the defense does not look just like they're going to give up explosive play after explosive play. They're getting turnovers, which, they had been able to do in years past, but they're getting stops as well. So I really like this Cowboys team right now. The only thing I can say, they released Jalen Smith the other day, and I know that has to do more with next year's salary cap. But what I don't understand about it is, why do you release him?
Why not utilize him? You're paying him anyways.
That's what I don't understand. And then you let him, of course, who he goes and signs with? Green Bay, who you are probably going to see in the playoffs. So why are you letting a good defensive player go to someone who can come back and hurt you? You saw what the Patriots did. They were going to release Gilmore, but then they were like, well, okay, Carolina, give us a 6th round pick for him. You can have him. And Gilmore is not going to come back and hurt the New England Patriots unless somehow Carolina and New England are matching up in the Super Bowl. And if you think that's going to happen, you should probably bet on that right now, because I can tell you the odds of a New England-Carolina Super Bowl are very, very large. But that's what I don't understand. Why do you not just take, a 7th round pick for Jalen Smith, ship him off to, somebody who is not, ship him to Pittsburgh, ship him to Cleveland, ship him to the Chargers, ship him to somebody you will not see. Because
unless you make it to the Super Bowl.
Yeah. I can pretty much guarantee you Cowboys Green Bay is a very highly likely matchup in a playoff game this season. So it just seemed weird to do that. Either hold on to him, and I guess maybe you can say that they thought maybe he'd cause some, disturbance in the locker room if he's not playing. But I just don't get releasing and then letting him sign with one of your biggest contenders on the season. That just seems like a poor decision. So you could save salary cap space next year.
Yeah, I mean, the move itself, logically speaking, makes no sense to me. I tried to sit down and figure it out, and I just couldn't understand it. I don't understand.
Also, what if Parsons or Van Der Esch, who gets hurt every year, gets hurt? You're going to need him to play.
It's not like the Cowboys don't have a history of their middle linebackers getting hurt. This has pretty much been a year in, year out thing with them. But besides all that, I think when it comes to situations like this, what I really think is going on is something that's going on behind the scenes that we don't know about.
That's
there
what
has
I thought.
to be, because it just doesn't make sense that, like you said, you let him go, pay him, and allow him to go to another team. It just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. You at least, get something in return, 6 round picks, and whatever it is. Now I know it doesn't happen often, but every now and then you do find a gem in those late rounds. And if you could get a guy like that for someone who was going to leave anyways, I mean, it's a win-win situation. I just don't understand it. You've already paid the guy. You're still going to pay him to play for another team that's potentially going to face off against you at some point. So it makes no sense. I will say that you are definitely more in love with the Cowboys right now than I am. I do, I'm definitely feeling your mojo, your vibe here with the Cowboys. I think they're a lot better than we've given them credit for and that people are giving them credit for. Offensively, we know that they're a powerhouse. You know that Pollard and that Pollard mixing him in there in the running game with Ezekiel, I think has been like a huge boost for that offense. It seems like it's made him more balanced. You're not seeing as many big plays from the wide receivers, but again, that's a good thing. And it's all due to the fact that you have really good chemistry on the ground game right now between Pollard and Ezekiel Elliott. So that defense, although they're not a shutdown defense, they can get stops, but they can definitely get turnovers. They're playmaking, ball hawking type of defense. And even the pass rush is getting better. So this is a scary team. If they keep progressing at the level that they're progressing right now, this is definitely a team that I would want to face off in the playoffs because they can, A, outscore you, or B, just outplay you. And I think that for the Giants, it's just probably a bad week to go up against this team, a team that's probably feeling their mojo right now and they're really high spirits. What was that line again?
It was 7 for the Cowboys.
Yeah, I mean, I still think it's kind of high.
Yeah, I think it's high too. I'm scared to really grab the Giants just because I saw them play well last week. But if you ask me to take something, I'd take Giants +7 in this one, especially since I thought I saw Saquon Barkley start to move a little bit like old Saquon Barkley.
Yeah, Saquon's definitely starting to find his rhythm again, which is probably a good thing if you're a New York Giants fan, because he's really the hum that's going to get that motor going. And he's looking better. He's not quite there yet. He's not quite the Saquon that, we all saw prior to the injury, but he's starting to get there. And with all that being said, a divisional opponent, both teams, seems like they're starting to find their way, find their identity. At 7 points, I think it's a little too high. But I think it's going to be a fun game if you're within that division. If you're a Cowboys fan, John, or even the Eagles and Washington fan, this is going to be a very telling game for that division and the way the division is going to stack up going forward.
Yeah, the only thing that sort of keeps me from pushing the Cowboys into that Tampa Rams Packers category is the coaching. Mike McCarthy is sort of the wart on a pretty girl's face here. I don't know how you get around that situation because my guess is Kellen Moore is getting a head coaching job next year. He pretty much had that Boise State job, but Dallas paid him overly. And, I don't know if you want to lose Kellen Moore. I know you probably can't fire Mike McCarthy in midseason as the Cowboys are doing well. But, I'm just sitting here knowing that Dallas is going to get into a playoff game and he's going to bumble something, and that's going to cost him a game in the playoffs. That would be the only thing that gives me a little bit of pause about putting them in that echelon category where I put the Rams, the Bucks, the Packers. I'm putting them in more Arizona, Dallas, probably not Seattle right now with the quarterback situation, but you have my attention and I'm looking at you, but I don't know if you're quite at the level that can make a 3-game playoff run to win 3 playoff games in a row here. But I'd lean Giants +7, but I don't know if it's quite something I want to grab onto yet.
Yeah. And really quick before you move on, I just want to say Mike McCarthy, I was never a huge fan. But the more I've seen of him, especially since his departure from Green Bay, I just don't think he's that good. and you laugh because it's probably been obvious to you for a while, but I think that Aaron Rodgers.
Has anyone ever fired a coach at 4-1 and promoted the offensive coordinator?
I don't think that's ever happened, but who knows?
Can we find a video of him feeling up a large booty blonde?
That might actually get him promoted.
Well, that would help too. Then Kellen Moore takes over and he just sits in the Lux box with Jones.
And then they actually are a good team then.
All right, we'll move on. We'll go to San Francisco at Arizona. Arizona is 5-point favorites in this game. The total sits at 50. First half total 3.5. Total 25.5. I have to say, good win by Arizona over the Rams. Offense looked good. They didn't make mistakes. Defense, I'm still not totally sold on, but they do rush the passer. They are explosive. I will say that. San Francisco, tough loss for Seattle. Jimmy G got hurt in that game. They're saying he's on track this week to play, but it's, they could be lying to us, and then we get Trey Lance in this one. But the more thing is they're getting a couple running backs this week. I kind of like San Francisco getting the 5 in this one. I think this is where we see an Arizona drop. And I think this is how this, NFC West, Niners lose a tough one to Seattle. Now they go to Arizona. They win a tough one there. I think 5's too many points, but what do you make of this game?
Yeah, I think this is going to be a really tough game. I think that a lot of people are too they're wearing rose-colored glasses when they look at the Cardinals, and I understand why. They look super exciting when you watch them on tape. The offense is a big playmaking type of offense, and the defense. I actually like the defense more than you do. I think the Cardinal defense is actually sneakily good. They can get after the quarterback, and they have the ability to stay with wide receivers. They can't be exposed, but that pass rush is good enough to where it doesn't really expose them. So I like that Cardinals defense a little better than you do. It's the Cardinals offense that I have my reservations about. Now I will say this,
and coaching,
great game. Yeah.
Though coaching. I will admit, Cliff coached probably the best game I've ever seen him coach in that Rams game. So, I'm not going to beat up on him this week. He coached a dynamite game in that one.
No, and this is coming from a Rams fan. They played a great game. You can't take anything away from them. It was a complete team victory, both on offense and defense. That offense is what scares me. They're so dependent on those big plays, and I keep saying it week after week after week. And this last week, every big play they attempted to hit. And I think their biggest asset is the ability of Kyler Murray to escape pressure, because he can escape pressure for a long period of time. And he can run you back and forth, from one side of the hash lines to the other. And then he finds someone open and he makes a big play. Now, they're very dependent on those plays, which is the scary part. But as long as they can keep them going and not get sacked, then they'll be okay. But I'm more concerned about the offense and the defense. Now, for San Francisco side of the ball, as you mentioned, they're getting some of the running backs back, which is really big. We said it before that they're a plug-and-play type of offense, but it seems like as you get lower and lower on that depth chart when it comes to the running back position, that plug-and-play mentality doesn't come into play.
I must say, Trey Sermon, very disappointing.
Yeah, very much so. I still am one of those few people that believes that the San Francisco 49ers are better off with Lance learning off the bench, maybe coming in for a few plays here and there. But I still think that they're better off letting him learn. I still think Jimmy G, it gives them the better chance to win. Yeah. And if he's healthy to go, I think this is going to be a much tougher game than people anticipate. I think the Niners can get after the Cardinals defensively. I think they can slow that Cardinals offense down enough to where they maybe make some mistakes and keep this game close. I kind of like the Niners here, but with a tough divisional opponent like that, I don't know. As an NFC West person, I'm probably going to just sit back and watch this game. I don't know how much action I want to take on it, but if I had to pick, I'd probably lean towards the Niners just because they're getting points.
Yeah, I'm leaning Niners here. I like that 5. So we can put that as our third mutual of the week. Niners plus 5 for this one, and see if the Niners can get the big road win here. I think this is a good game for them. I don't see the Niners losing 3 in a row here. Arizona sort of due for a loss here. So San Francisco plus a 5 in this one. Next up, this one, I don't know if defense is going to be played, but I think it'll be entertaining. Buffalo Bills go to the Kansas City Chiefs. Chiefs 2.5-point favorites, coming off a pretty good win versus the Eagles. They went on the road, got their first cover. I must say, Sunday, I felt it. I took the Kansas City Chiefs minus a 7 road favorite, and I was rewarded. So they're now 2-12-1 overall against the spread in their last 15 games. So
after you talked me out of it.
Yes, I know. I'm a very bad person. I did at least text message you
yes,
on
you did.
Sunday. But
After my
Chiefs,
bets were already in,
yes.
by the way.
I will also say I had a fun one with the Buffalo Bills. That's 17 and a half. I figured it was going to go one of two ways. Either they weren't going to show up versus the Texans and it was going to be a weird close game, or it was going to be a total blowout and the Texans weren't going to do anything. So I took an alternate line, Buffalo Bills, minus 27 and a half, plus
Wow.
160. Now, I don't know what's more disturbing, that I took a 27 and a half and only got 160 in an NFL game, or the fact that I covered it rather easily at 45 to nothing.
Now, are you sure this was the Bills and not a college game, right?
I am correct. Buffalo
Okay.
Bills, 27 and a half plus 160. I got that
Wow.
one. They did get the shutout. They did cover the 27 and the 17 and a half point line. But the Bills' margin of victory the last 3 weeks has been disturbingly high. So Chiefs coming off a big win. Offense sort of found its way. Defense, I think we can still have question marks. Bills' defense has looked good, but it has not really played a good offense. I think that's where we start in this one. Is anyone going to stop anyone in this game?
You know, you might catch you by surprise with this one, but I kind of like the Bills in this game, and I'll tell you why. When I look at both these teams pose a big threat offensively, right?
Yeah.
But the Chiefs haven't shown much in terms of defense so far this season, and even going back to last season, they showed they were susceptible defensively. You know, as long as you can offensively keep up with them, you have a good shot at winning this game. And I think the Bills have enough defense to slow the Chiefs down enough. Not they're going to stop them, but slow them down enough to where the Bills' offense can outscore them. I think it's probably going to be a high-scoring matchup, but I think the Chiefs are probably going to come out on top of this one. The Bills are going to come out on top of this one. I don't think the Chiefs are. I think we look at Patrick Mahomes, we look at Travis Kelce, we look at Cheetah out on the outside, just burning past the secondaries, and we just assume that they're this great team. And yeah, they are offensively, they're a really good team, but in terms of defense, they have no defense. And it can become an Achilles heel as we've seen it so far this season. This is one of the reasons why within their own division, they're looking up at other teams, because other teams are more well-rounded than they are. Doesn't matter how much offense you have, you can't outscore every single team in the NFL. Some teams have offense, some teams have defense, some teams have both. And unfortunately for them, I think the Bills are just slightly better on defense than they are. And because of that, we'll probably see a Bills win in this one.
Yeah, I leaned towards Bills getting the 2.5. The question mark is whether I think the Bills defense is legit, because they have played pretty poor offenses in all 4 weeks. Steelers, Dolphins, Patriots, such and such. So I just don't think it's quite there. But we'll see this week. I did like that total 56 and a half going over, because I think this game is played easily in the 30s. I don't think either side is really going to be able to slow them down. But what if we split the difference on our mutuals? We double up on this game. We take the total 56 and a half over, and we give you your Bills plus the 2.5 in this one, and see if we can get a double up in this game.
Okay, that works for me.
All right. So those are our 5 mutuals. We can discuss this last game to see if we slot one of them out. My guess is we do not. The Indianapolis Colts go to the Baltimore Ravens. Ravens coming off a pretty easy win versus the Denver Broncos. Offense looked okay in that one. Marquise Brown caught his couple deep shots. Ravens move on. Defense finally looked pretty solid, but it was first Drew Lock after Teddy Bridgewater got concussed. Colts got their first win of the season going down to Miami. I'd say looked okay, but there was not much resistance on that side. Ravens minus 6.5. Total at 45.5, first half -4, total at 23. I was just a total pass on this game. I thought this line was too high at 6.5. That just seems a lot for this Ravens teams, especially since I don't quite know what I'm getting from the Colts yet.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the Colts can come out and completely shock you defensively. I don't think that offensively they're going to really keep people up at night, but I think defensively they can turn it around on any given Sunday. And the Ravens have been improving. I think they've definitely found a more consistent trend of offense, over the last couple of weeks, and it's helped them out. As you mentioned, I don't know if this game turns out the way it did if Drew Lock doesn't come into the game at some point. So I don't know. I'm not quite sure where I stand with either team. You would think that by this point in the season, I would at least have some sort of sense of where they are, but it seems to me like both of these teams are going through certain transitions.
Yeah.
Whether it's injury wise or just scheme wise, and it just gets me to the point where I just don't know what I'm getting. So I'm gonna stay away from this particular game.
Yeah, I think Baltimore probably wins this game, but that number I just have no feel on. This could be a blowout. This could be Ravens win by a field goal at the end. I just don't know what I'm getting from the Colts. I sort of know what I'm getting from the Ravens, but they've been a little all over the place as well. So I was just a pass on this game. I was curious to see if I could watch it and get more of a gauge of what these teams are. I don't know if we're ever going to get a total gauge on the Colts till they get fully healthy. They still didn't totally get that run game going in Miami. Wentz looked better, so maybe his ankles are healing a little bit. But
his ankles.
Yes,
I'm sorry. That's not something to make fun of, but how do you hurt both ankles?
Yeah. So I think this one's just a pass, but we had our 5. We're going with the Green Bay Packers -3 versus Cincinnati Bengals. The Carolina Panthers -3 versus the Philadelphia Eagles. The San Francisco I almost said Giants. I'm in baseball mode this year. The San Francisco
Dodgers, baby.
Yes, I know. Lovely that they get to, I'm just going to say it, they have to play a play-in game when they finished 18 games above the team they played in the play-in game. And now, for some reason, the team that won 109 games is playing the team that won 106 games in a 5-game series. Major League Baseball, why don't you fix that a little bit?
They should. So, I mean, not to get off football here, but they should find a way to where they reseed things, because it doesn't seem right. You're probably losing out 2 of the best teams in this.
They were the
matchup.
2 best teams in all of baseball. Legit.
I'd want to drag that out as long as possible, and hope that they meet up, in the championship series. But I don't understand it. But
no, they'd rather have a Milwaukee, San Francisco in it.
Yeah, that's talk for another day.
But anyway. San Francisco 49ers plus the 5 versus the Arizona Cardinals, a double up. Buffalo Bills plus the 2.5 over the total of 56.5. So those are our 5 mutuals. Let's get into our individual picks for week 5. I got 6 total picks in week 5. For me, I will say we probably should start watching Winning Daily on a Sunday. I'll make sure to get those out because my mind goes through numerous changes, and then I send panic texts to Achilles Rain Sunday at about 11:30, asking what the hell I should do.
Yeah, I think I need to be involved in this, because I feel pretty confident about certain things, and then I'm like, Jesus, he changed his picks, and it makes sense to me now. Why did I change mine? But yeah, I think I had 6 picks. Well, sorry, I had 7 picks. So you talked me out of the Falcons and the Rams. Obviously, we didn't get to record this till after the Rams game, but I had the Rams at -2.5.
I had a lot of player props in that game. Deshaun Jackson, whoa!
he still got a little gas left.
Well, that's what I went for. I went for overage yardage total, but I wanted to make sure, because he always catches one pass for. However many yards.
He's one of those few players that can break an over-under in yards in a game in one catch.
Yes, definitely so. All right, so let's get to our picks. I got 6. I'm going to start off with the New York Jets plus the 3 in London this week. Just think the Falcons, without their receivers out there, probably going to be hamstrung a little bit. And I think this Jets defense, probably of the 4 units on the field, is the only unit I can say is somewhat decent. So I'm going to ride Jets plus the 3 versus the Falcons in London.
Now, Look,
I don't think I can get a winning daily out by 9:30 a.m. when I come off the Jets on Sunday morning, by the way.
Now, I will say this, okay? You had talked me out of the Falcons, which had given me 6 picks. But you know what? You just talked me right back into the Falcons. I feel like we got to have some action going on for this early game, especially since it's going to be the only game playing at that moment. We're going to have something riding on it. So I'm going to take the Falcons -3.
All right, so we got a duel ahead of us in London here. I have Jets, you have Falcons, +3, -3. Next up for me, I got the Green Bay Packers, -3 in the Cincinnati Bengals. I'm just going with best team here. Green Bay Packers, better team than the Bengals. They'll cover this 3, I think.
Yeah, and I'll match you. I actually have the Green Bay Packers, and I said it as we were talking, so we were doing our preview. I had them locked in as one of my picks, so Green Bay -3 also.
All right, next up for me, Pittsburgh Steelers -1. We think Pittsburgh finds a way to win this one. This one probably will be ugly and not a whole lot of fun to watch, but I think Pittsburgh at least comes away with a win here, so Pittsburgh -1 for me.
Yeah, mark me down for that one also. I have the Steelers at -1.
All right, next up for me, Carolina Panthers -3 over the Philadelphia Eagles. So I'm going Carolina Panthers -3. McCaffrey back. I think this Carolina Panthers team much better than this Eagles team. Look for him to get back on track here at home. Carolina -3.
Okay, for my next one, I am taking the Raiders at -5.5.
Ooh, going Vegas style here with the Raiders over Cleveland. Right. Chicago, I mean, not Cleveland. Same.
You scared me there for a second.
Yes, Vegas Raiders over Chicago Bears at -5.5. I don't know if I would implore taking the Raiders -5.5 over Cleveland.
At that point, I'd be more concerned than I am now. So
I made an alternate line spread and I'll combine the 2 games, and if the Raiders score more than 5.5 over the Cleveland Browns, I'll give it to you.
Okay, I'll take that.
All right, next up for me, San Francisco 49ers +5 over the Arizona Cardinals for me.
Okay, I have 3 left. I'm taking the Titans at -4.5.
Oh, my God. He's going with the Titans and the bad defense over the lady killers of the Jacksonville Jaguars.
I love I listen, I just had to after watching that video. I'm like, excuse my language here, not trying to be rude, but what a scumbag. That was the first thing that popped to mind when I saw that.
Please. Yeah. You're lucky they didn't have cell phones on you in the days of you in the LA bars. Those big booty hoes would have been all over you, filling them up.
No, I'm happily married, and I'm glad to, because that's not my scene.
I'm trying to get Achilles in trouble now his reminiscing on his old school bars days in LA.
No, that's not gonna. I was at home watching football. I wasn't a ball hopper.
You were at the bar Saturday night, just like Urban, 3 sheets to the wind, and the ladies were dancing all up on you. All right, next up for me, Buffalo Bills, Kansas City Chiefs. I'm taking the over in this one, 56.5. That's my last pick of the week.
Okay, for my last 2 picks, I am taking the under at 52 in the New York Giants and Dallas game. Remember that one. And I'm also taking the under in the Titans-Jacksonville game, which sits at 48.5.
All right, lot writing on the Tennessee Titans Jacksonville Jaguars game. All right, be sure to follow us on Greenlight Network. You can like and subscribe so you don't miss any of our concerts.
No more concerts. You don't want to miss those.
I think Achilles is going to give us a concert sometime soon, a solo concert by Achilles Rain. Anyway, any of our shows on Greenlight Network, so like and subscribe. We dropped our college football show on Wednesday. Be sure to watch all that so you can get all our picks. Be sure to watch Winning Daily over the weekend as I adjust my picks on the week. Also, maybe Achilles Rain might adjust some of his picks on the week.
I might have to.
He's a little bit more stabilized than me. I'm more of a late game picker. He's more of a Monday picker. Yeah. He's on there refreshing lines, waiting for him to pop up on that Monday. So be sure to like and subscribe to not miss any of our concerts. Jesus.
Baby, our concerts.
So yes, we've been recording for a long time here. Achilles, where can we find you?
As always, you can find me on Twitter at TD Achilles.
All right, that's our show, and we're out.